I'm Laura Faye. I'm the host of White Pods, and today I am very excited because we have Sean from USA Medbed. Sean, welcome. I am happy to have you here today.
Thanks for having me on. I'm super excited to be with you, and I've been wanting to get on your podcast here for some time. So thanks for inviting me.
You are very, very welcome. Why don't you start off by telling me a little bit about yourself? Tell me all about USA Medbed. There's so much to hear.
That sounds good. Well, the interesting thing is that there's two facets to what I do. One is medical equipment sales, which is really my background. Setting up surgery centers, setting up hospitals overseas. We do a lot of work in Africa, Latin America, Mexico, and we built a lot of hospitals and done that. One of the things that I do here in the States that I'm very specialized in is wound care and high-end patient care. And that breaks down into long-term care, and it gets out of hospital-based stuff and gets more into private homes. I'm one of the few companies in the United States where if you have a loved one that needs hospital-grade care at home, that I'm going to have the wound care, mattresses, beds, all the stuff that they're going to need for home care.
Right.
So I've been doing that now for over 15 years. But basically what happens is I get calls every day from people who have ALS, that have MS, that have been in car accidents or quadriplegic, paraplegic. And so that journey of dealing with these types of patient needs on a daily basis, about 4 or 5 years ago, I started hearing about these med beds per se.
Yeah.
Bed is actually kind of a play on words because a lot of medical beds, but also the med bed technology, something that really has caught the fascination of the general public. It caught mine. My thought process was, man, I'm dealing with some really messed up people every day. If there's anything out there that I could do to help them,
Yeah.
I want to learn more about this. And that kind of is what took me into that whole bed technology, which I would break med bed technology down as to energy and frequency based technology. And I can get into more of that, here as we kind of talk about that.
Yeah, I'd love to hear about that. Typically, I would ask you a little bit of this, a little bit of that, but this is something that is so unique and so interesting. Walk me through the med bed.
So, I guess, the interesting thing about medbed and medbed technology is when you really go deep down into it, you're going to find like some of the most powerful technology right now on the planet that I would classify as actual medbed technology are plasma energy systems. And plasma energy is basically what happens to gas. So you have solid, liquid, gas, and when gas gets hit with enough energy, it converts it into plasma. So aura is plasma, your soul, all that plasma. Thing is plasma, the sun is plasma. If you're a history person, which I really love, notice like ancient Aztec, ancient Mayan, a lot of ancient civilizations worship the sun. Unbeknownst to me, up until a few years ago, getting into this, the sun is actually a mindful and an intelligent energy field. And it's like, whoa. So you get into that and then you start figuring out, wow, these people back in the day were actually much smarter than what we really gave them credit for. And the thing that's interesting is that in ancient hieroglyphics, when you get into ancient Egypt and you get into all that stuff with the pyramids and all, actually have inscribed dual plasma chamber, dual tube plasma energy systems, hieroglyphics, which shows me and tells the world that these people were highly intelligent. I mean, for the most part, there's still a lot of things that they did back in the day that we still can't do now, like moving 100-ton rocks and carving things and doing that. So you start looking into research and you start getting into this, it's like, wow, there's actually quite a bit there.
Right.
Bed technology originally is what I call off planet, meaning that I'm not going to get into off planet stuff with terrestrials and all that, but it really goes there because dual tube energy systems were primarily being used by a group of people that they referred to as the Anunnaki. But what happened is when they came to the Earth's atmosphere, the Earth was basically, the atmosphere was aging them prematurely. So those dual tube plasma energy systems that they were using were very helpful. And you'll find that in the Bosnian pyramid, thousands and thousands, well over 5,000 documented testimonials. At the bottom of pyramids, they're actually some of the most powerful healing centers on the planet. The Bosnian pyramid, which is open to the public, countless numbers of different things. And pyramids in general were made to stabilize the Earth's atmosphere. They were energy generators, but they were also major healing centers. So when you go into that, it's like, wow, okay, that's kind of, out there.
Yeah.
you're getting into the premise of it. So with the dual tube energy systems, which I call well, medbed technology, because when you understand what the off-planet technology is, there's multiple different types of quote unquote medbeds. You have holographic med beds that can regrow limbs. You have um, the sort of the cryo chambers that reverse you back 20 years, age reversal. But a lot of that can easily be done now. And you have plasma energy, which can basically rejuvenate and fix anything in the body for the most part. And so, dual tube energy systems are very, very cool because what's happening is that you've got two opposing forces that are spinning a whirlpool into the center, and when they hit, they create this energy field. Energy field becomes recursive, meaning that it starts kind of doing this. What happens is that that energy field actually taps into the DNA and actually becomes a mindful and intelligent energy field. So with the dual tube plasma systems that we run here, you're actually in a mindful intelligent energy field, which then gets into attention and intuition, intention primarily. Get into stuff with the body, and then you get into a lot of spiritual stuff, which is stuff like astral projection, higher intuition. You start understanding everything's energy and frequency, then you can also start looking at the fact that collective consciousness, the Akashic records, there's a lot of things that we have the ability to tap into. As our frequency gets higher, we actually have that ability. So there's a lot of people. Casey is a great example where this guy was just genius. He could tap into things and predict, and everything's present, past, present, and future is all basically there. They all have the ability to tap into that. So initially, when you talk medbed stuff, you get into all messed up and I need help and all that, and it gets to a physical part of it. And eventually, as you understand the power of the technology, you understand that you start saying, wow, Laura's going to be calling me. I'm thinking of Laura. And then boom, my phone rings and there's Laura. How is that possible? But we're tuning in these things going on around us. So the goal with everything is obviously to have higher energy. So love, and, kindness and compassion and all those things, those are high frequencies that lift you into more of a spiritual realm where you're tapping into a lot more of your higher consciousness. And then fear, anger, and all that, that's all lower frequency stuff that really prevents you from getting into higher states of consciousness. And so the medbed stuff is, as you can see, can get into different layers.
Yeah.
But the questions you want to jump in?
I'm just blown away. I am so interested in this. I've always tried to research this and have looked into it, but there's so much information out there and it's very hard to absorb because it's unfamiliar. First, you have to wrap your mind around the fact that it is possible because it goes against any logic that we've been taught, I guess, if you want to say that. So first I have to accept that this is possible and then you have to try to understand it. Am I sounding like everybody else right?
No, you're right on 100%. And I agree with you 100% because I'm in my 50s, right? I'm 58 years old. And, we've kind of been brought up in a box where this is all that's possible. You stay in your box. And then once you start breaking out of that a little bit, and then you start going out and you start referencing stuff. Now, one of the things that I love to do, because when you get into this subject matter, you really have to really kind of be a history buff.
Right.
God bless you.
Thank you.
And so you have to get into physics, which is interesting because those were the classes that I ran away from in high school and college. And now I'm like, I want to know more. I want to know more because the thing we do is 100% based on physics.
Yeah.
Even though I have a lot of information, I get my information from people much smarter than myself. But
Right.
interesting that when you're really passionate about something and you really love it, how much you want to absorb. It's like, there's certain subjects where it's like you could hit me right in the head with it. It's like, I don't want to know. But when you really get passionate about it, then all of a sudden, so basic premise of almost everything is that, and it's very simple, everything runs on a frequency. My computer, every part of our body is a different frequency. My hair, my bone, my cartilage, everything's a frequency. And figured that out well over 100 years ago. There was a gentleman named Royal Rife who was a San Diego guy. He made a microscope back in the early 1920s with over 6,000 moving parts. He could look at every cell under a microscope and they ran frequencies through it. Could find frequencies that would rejuvenate a cell, and they could find frequencies that would eliminate a cell. So let's say there's an example, there's something in your body that you don't want in there, which is a tumor or whatever it might be.
Right.
Very simple to just target a frequency and eliminate those cells. And they figured that stuff out well over 100 years ago. So if you go into the history of it, like it was Tesla originally, it was Nikola Tesla. So if you get into the history, it's like, oh my God, but what's funny is that about Nikola Tesla, I didn't have any idea what the guy did, until I started getting into this. I mean, I know he created lasers that could blow up planets or whatever,
Yeah.
but you understand that everything's energy, frequency, and vibration. And the interesting thing about Tesla, in his lab, he's working on all kinds of different things. And one of the things that he found that was really fascinating him is all of his fruits and vegetables that normally go bad within a week were lasting for 3 to 4 weeks. And he's like, wow, that's really interesting. Well, then he had started understanding that there was stuff going on in the lab that was basically allowing this to happen. And Tesla also was big into plasma energy. So if you see those pictures with Tesla and he's got his hands outstretched and there's a lightning bolt going
Yeah.
through the left and a lightning bolt going through the right, and Tesla knew those energy systems were mindful, intelligent energy fields. There's stories about Tesla where he'd listen to thunderstorms and lightning and he would just revel in it and just marvel at it because he understood those are live, intelligent energy fields. So you get into the history, you start learning things about that. But then when you break it down, it's like, okay, well, if everything in my body is a frequency, and I know I can target certain frequencies to help rejuvenate or help eliminate, then how can that be useful in my daily life? Now, there's another system out there called an EE system, which is all over the United States. That's Dr. Sandra Rose Michael. She developed that. Basically, instead of talk a lot with plasma energy, the EE system's using lasers, but it's the same basic premise that when they collide, they create these scalar energy fields. And when your body's in a scalar energy field, it helps rejuvenate the body. It can help regrow telomeres on your DNA. Well, guess what? When that happens, you reverse age, right? You start slowing down the aging process because aging is ultimately a breakdown of the body. It's a breakdown of cells activating, but it's also a breakdown of your telomeres on your DNA. And so when you start, putting those back in, boom, all of a sudden now your process slows down. In many cases, it reverses. And
Great.
the thing I get a lot, and I'm just going to share this with you because there's always these common questions. Well, how do I want to reverse back 20 years? I want to reverse back 20 years. Well, I always shift that off into something that I call common sense, right? And common sense says that there's two different ways that you're gonna basically get age. There's gonna be your chronological age and your biological age, right? So your chronological age is what's on your driver's license. That was the day you were born. That's gonna tell us calendar standpoint how old you are. However, there's also your biological age, right? And biological age is mainly determined by how well you take care of yourself, right? So you exercise and you eat right and you do all the right things, you can actually reverse your age. If you start in incorporating some of the other technology, that's all well and good. However, if you go on Instagram or any social media, you'll find that there's guys my age or older that are doing 50 to 100 push-ups and sit-ups and they're eating right
Yeah.
and they don't look a day over 40 and they're 60.
Yeah.
And so I tell people, you really want to start getting younger, get to the gym, working out, right? Because you want to reverse your biological age. And then if you're near an EE system or you have other technology, that's fantastic. But if your premise of doing this is sit on the couch and smoke cigarettes, right? Because the opposite could be true, right? You could be 50 years old, pounding cigarettes, drinking every day, eating Cheetos. You could be 50 years old, but have a body of a 75-year-old,
Yeah.
right? I always tell people, don't come to me for that because if you really want the longevity, you need to take care of yourself. Let's say, as an example, the med beds actually did exist. And I know people that have been in these various programs that have used this technology. And this has come from years of research and being in contact with people that are actually have been in the used the med beds. I know all about that. But let's say, as an example, you could jump into that med bed and go 20 years back. You get out, if you still carry all those bad lifestyle habits, it's not really going to help you all that much, in all honesty, because you're just going back to what you did before. And there, in some cases, that 20-year back type technology that can take a toll on your body. That is not a natural thing to happen, is to reverse yourself back 20 years ago. it's a complicated subject, and that gets into deep rabbit holes that we don't want to get into on this call. But everybody talks about reverse my age. Okay, eat better, high high nutritional supplements, get in the gym, work out, get some sun, do some things. But because of what I deal with on a daily basis with my medical industry, and I do, like I said, deal with people every day that are really messed up. And in many times, the number one thing, Laura, that I would tell you is that the first and most powerful technology that you have to address is your mind. The mind is like there's layers of what you have to do to be super healthy, to live a good life, but your mind even if I have the most powerful technology on the planet, if somebody has shut down their mind and they've given up, it's going to be very difficult, even with any and all the technology that I've got. And, I've got this, the celestial pod, I've got all this stuff here. If your mind is shut down, you've given up hope. Well, I mean, like I have to walk people off the ledge that want to give up. I mean, that's a very difficult thing to say, but
Yeah.
psychologically, I have to keep them in the fight mentally to say, yes, there is hope and there is things that you can do and there is technology out there, but you have to stick with me and you have to believe. And the problem is that your mind will formed exactly as you program it, right? We were talking about programming earlier. You say, in many cases, you could say, oh, that doesn't work. That's not true. You can use the technology many times, like, wow, okay, I didn't know that did happen, but it did.
Right.
And excuse me, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
And so, make a long story short, mind is the most powerful part of your body that has to be programmed, and you'd be amazed at how powerful your mind is and what you can do if it's programmed correctly,
I believe
right?
it.
And so, not medbed technology, that is you using the facilities that God gave you. And so the medbed stuff is all well and good, and I think it's phenomenal and I love it. But I do feel like there's other things that need to be brought into that equation,
Yeah.
and be talked about.
Absolutely. I believe that about the mind because I've always said if stress can kill you and deteriorate your body, right, because of the mental stress, then what if you did that in reverse? Because there's always an opposite. What if the mind can heal you? If it can destroy your body, why can't it heal your body? I've always thought like that. That's just very, very, very interesting. Very interesting. Let me ask
It
you
is.
this.
Yeah.
Y-
So
With some,
so one thing, go ahead. Did you have another thing you want to add? I'm sorry.
well, I actually wanted to ask you a question. So now these med beds, do you have a facility that somebody goes to where they go in the med bed? Do you sell the med bed? How does it work?
Like I said, there's a lot of wellness centers out there right now that have medbed type technology. There has been places that sold the pods and have something more like this, but in honesty, if you just strip the technology out of it, you can make it cheaper, less expensive, and very effective. The EE system is a very powerful system that classifies itself as a medbed type technology. And you can go to eesystem.com. They probably got about 400 or 500 centers. Very powerful technology, and it gets on their website, they'll really drill down and give it to you. The plasma energy technologies, in my it's is also very highly very good for you. And basically what happens is there's something called a 0 point, and that's where everything collides. When you're using the plasma energy systems, you're in the 0 point because you're right in between the two tubes. There's a little bit more that you can do with the range of frequencies, but if you're just looking for really powerful med type technology, the EE system with Dr. Sandra Rose Michael has done a phenomenal job of getting the technology out there and getting it around the world. Plasma energy systems are also very, very powerful. They're not prevalent. Uh, those are places that are set up as wellness centers you can go into. For me personally, I just make it available. I'm in Richmond, Virginia, and I just invite people in because I really just I want the data. I just want to help people. And my premise is more of just getting the experiences down, collecting the data, um, and selling the technology for those that want it. We sell stuff, like I've got these terahertz wands that are $300 or $400. They throw off 4 or 5 different types of energy, very inexpensive. Some of the most powerful things that you can get and do, honestly, is grounding, which is as simple as putting your feet on the ground and getting outside. But we also sell grounding bed sheets. Grounding is super powerful. Your brain waves run frequency of the earth, and that's called the Schumann resonance. And all the EMF that we get hit with all the Wi-Fi routers and everything, it takes your brain waves and starts making them look more like an EKG. And you can ground, especially when you're sleeping, it brings your brain waves back to their normal rounded, status. And then there's proven 20 studies showing that you get up to 20% deeper sleep. Got sheets that have far infrared, so when you're laying in them, you get far infrared and grounding. There's multiple different benefits that go with that. So I just do things in layers. It's like you don't. Some people really need a med bed, right? And some people are waiting for the day that the med beds get here. However, in my experience, and I deal with just about every calamity known to mankind, 95% of what's out there right now, there's technology out there that can address it. So,
Amazing.
um, and that's not saying that the free med beds aren't going to be here someday, right? That's not saying that won't happen. However, with a lot of people I deal with, they don't have 90 days, they don't have 6 months, they don't have this time to wait for this. I've also heard free energy is going to be out there, and I know we have technology for free energy, but where is that, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
for me, as sort of a hands-on kind of guy, it's like, well, what's out here right now? What can I do right now for this person? And as I talked to you earlier, first thing I do is install hope, get the mind into the fight, right? I get the mind in the fight, I instill hope. And the last thing that I want to talk about, and then I'll let you go because I know we're getting close on our time frame. We're all familiar with the law of vibration, the law of attraction,
Yeah.
the secret, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So Bob Proctor, Napoleon Hill, those things, and you say, I know this is possible. It is possible. Anything you program your mind is 100% possible. But I want to take it one level up, and I want to introduce anybody that's on this call that's familiar with a gentleman named Neville Goddard. Difference between Neville Goddard and all these other phenomenal people, that the premise is you already achieved exactly what you're looking for. It's already happened. You're not saying, oh, I hope it happens. You're not saying, oh, I can't wait till that happens, or I want this to happen.
Yeah.
Already happened. You live in the present state as if it's already happened. You're not trying to aspire. What happens is when you live in the moment, when you live in what Neville calls in the end, Neville starts every lecture off with God, all things are possible.
Yeah.
When you live in the end as if it's already happened, and the frequency that you send out is that outcome has already occurred, draw that to you, right? And so you get into some very powerful metaphysical things, but I want everybody that's out there, if there's anything you want to do with your life, whether it's related to health, wellness, or achievement, in the end, already focused that it's already present tense. And you'll find, and this is probably the last thing I'll leave you with before we finish up, mind is going to say, oh no, man, you've got a bunch of bills, or this is crushing you right now. That's fine. But go back and live in the end and say it can't be there always because I'm already living in the present moment. And so doing is you're recirculating your thoughts, you're reprogramming your mindset, because that's kind of how we started off this conversation, is how we're sort of boxed in to what our mind is possible. But I'd say that, if you can live in the end, if you can already see, because like as an example, there's a woman, her husband broke his back. He's in his 60s, grandkids working on trying to build a playground. He falls, he breaks his back. But I can't wait till he can walk again. I said, no, he's already walking.
Yeah.
You have to visualize that he's already walking, and you visualize that it's already happening, and you manifest it for him,
Yes.
right?
Absolutely.
So when that incorporates with everything else that I've got with all these different things, then we live in a world of infinite possibilities. And I think that's probably a good place to leave it.
This was so great and inspirational and informative, and I want to thank you so much for coming on today. I think anybody who watches this is going to walk away with a whole different perspective and outlook on things. So, Sean, thank you so much for sharing everything that you did today. I truly enjoyed it and appreciate you.
Really appreciate you. Thank you so much for the opportunity. And I think, when it comes down to it, we're really able to encapsulate a lot of really good information and address a lot of the basic information and questions. And, people can go to our website and get more information as well. But thank you so much for your time today. I greatly appreciate it.
Very welcome. Thank you.